In 1990, Goodfellas exploded, plunging you into mob glamour, betrayal, and paranoia. The real story? Mobsters on set. Lines that terrified the crew. An FBI probe sparked by one scene, and a premiere where criminals judged their lives on screen. This is the untold saga of a film that risked everything. Here's the raw, unfiltered truth from those who survived it, laid bare. Goodfellas began with Wise Guy, Nicholas Pileggi's 1985 exposé on Henry Hill's rise and fall in the Lucchese crime family. Martin Scorsese, drained from mean streets and Raging Bull, ignored it. "I was done with crime stories," he says, voice heavy with exhaustion. A failed epic, The Last Waltz, collapsed in 1984 due to $10 million budget overruns and clashes with Universal, leaving him shattered. "My career was crumbling," Scorsese admits, fear in his tone. One sleepless night in 1985, Wise Guy gripped him. "It was my destiny," he recalls, voice trembling. At 2 a.m., he called Pileggi, urgency palpable. "Nick, this is it," he said, heart racing. Pileggi, half asleep, replied, "Marty, I've been waiting my whole life." Their partnership ignited, but studios recoiled. "Too dark, no heroes," producer Irwin Winkler says, frustration evident. Warner Brothers took the gamble, fearing lawsuits from active mobsters. Legal warnings came daily, Scorsese says, voice tense. Names were changed. Jimmy Burke to Conway, Paul Vario to Cicero, to avoid trouble. Hill, in witness protection, was strictly barred. "His presence could have endangered everyone," Pileggi says, voice tight. Hill defied orders, sneaking onto the set in a cap, fake beard, and sunglasses. "I saw him staring," Ray Liotta recalls, chilled. "It was Henry, my own character, haunting me." Scorsese and Pileggi worked 15-hour days, diving into FBI files and court transcripts. Nick's research was a goldmine, Scorsese says, eyes alight. They interviewed ex-mobsters in secret safe houses in 1987, using coded names. Hill's voiceover captured his paranoia, bravado, and unraveling psyche. "We wanted his chaotic headspace," Pileggi says, intense. Ray Liotta fought relentlessly for the role. "I stalked Marty, diners, Toronto film festivals," he says, half laughing. Security nearly arrested him in 1988 for harassment at TIFF. Studios pushed for Tom Cruise, Sean Penn, Val Kilmer, Nicolas Cage, Kevin Costner, Michael Keaton, Mel Gibson, even Alec Baldwin. Ray had Henry's edge. Charm, danger, hunger, Scorsese says. Casting director Ellen Lewis insisted, "It's Ray or we walk." Robert De Niro, as Jimmy Conway, called Burke in prison. "Guards cut it off. Federal crime," Pileggi says, incredulous. De Niro met ex-cons at Robert's Lounge in Brooklyn, studying their gestures. "I had to feel their world," he says, voice low. He watched 1978 Lufthansa heist FBI surveillance tapes, mimicking Burke's smirks, coffee sips, and bill stacks, on hundreds on top. Advisors, some refusing names, shared mob secrets. They detailed cash flows up the Lucchese hierarchy, razor-thin garlic slicing, scarless beatings, not in any book. Scorsese says, uneasy. Script pages went to connected figures for approval. Notes came back. "Change this," Pileggi says, cautious. An ex-Lucchese associate named a heist's whiskey, Jim Beam, not Jack Daniels. Another described a murder's cleanup, bleach smell, Jersey dump site, off Route 3. "He was there," Scorsese says, tense. A cigarette brand was corrected. Marlboro, not Camel. A tie knot, Windsor, not half Windsor. A 1976 scam used an IBM Selectric printer for fake IDs. A 1974 extortion named $10,000 cash drops at a Brooklyn pier. The 1978 Lufthansa heist's Chubb lock, not Yale, was specified. It wasn't public, Pileggi says. A 1972 loan sharking detail listed 2% weekly interest. A 1975 hit used a Beretta. 92 with a silencer. A 1970 drug deal specified 80% pure cocaine. The film's kinetic style mirrored Hill's cocaine-fueled mind. It was his chaos, Scorsese says, fierce. Liotta felt the danger. No set security, he says. I checked my car nightly, heart racing, fearing a bomb. Every day was a gamble, Winkler says, grim. A 1989 cease and desist letter from a mob lawyer citing defamation heightened fears. We could have been sued, or worse, Scorsese says, voice low. The socio-political climate, Reagan-era greed, mirrored the mob's excess. Goodfellas feels alive because it wasn't scripted. Raw, chaotic improv drove its pulse. The funny how scene, Joe Pesci's Tommy DeVito snapping, wasn't planned. As a waiter, I called a mobster funny, Pesci says, voice low. The room froze. I thought I was dead. Scorsese saw its power. Laughter to violence. That's the mob, he says, eyes blazing. He let Pesci and Liotta improvise. No warning for extras, Liotta says. Their scared laughs were real, their fear palpable. Pesci's eyes burned with rage. I was terrified, Liotta admits, voice shaky. Scorsese gave conflicting directions. Push for me, pull for Ray, Lorraine Bracco says. It felt alive, electric, dangerous. Pesci's pistol whipping. Scene was unrehearsed. Let me feel it, he told Scorsese, voice steady. Crew flinched. Gasps caught on camera. Script supervisor Dina Allen says. Continuity was hell. Every take shifted wildly. Pesci practiced mood swings in his trailer using mirrors. Joy to fury in 3 seconds, he says, intense. The Layla montage, bodies in cars, freezers, was an edit bay creation. Shot separately, editor Thelma Schoonmaker says. Marty wanted the cost to hit like a wave, she adds, voice soft. Henry's final day, a paranoid spiral, had no script, just an outline, Scorsese says. We wanted his raw panic, his unraveling. Liotta skipped sleep for 3 days. I hallucinated. Shadows, voices, he says, voice raw. The helicopter shot, tracking his frantic glances, was a last-minute fix for pacing. Bracco's gun scene was visceral. I pulled the trigger in rehearsal, Bracco says, voice catching. Ray's fear was real. My hands shook. Henry Hill called the set, defying court orders. Henry wouldn't move like that, Liotta recalls, stunned. Liotta used Hill's notes secretly, slipping them into his performance. Bracco studied mob wives in Bensonhurst, learning their defiance. They weren't victims, they were players, proud, she says, voice fierce. The ending, Hill breaking the fourth wall, was a desperate rewrite. Original was flat, Scorsese says. I rewrote it overnight. Henry, talking to you, blind to his flaws. Liotta nailed it in 1 take. I felt his loss. Liotta says, voice breaking. We captured lightning, Scorsese says, pride in his tone. Improvisation wasn't acting, it was survival. Every take was a gamble, Allen says, exhausted. Pesci's volatility kept the crew on edge. We didn't know what he'd do, Liotta says, uneasy. Bracco felt guilt. Karen's thrill. I lived it, but it was heavy, she says, conflicted. The improv blurred reality and fiction, making Goodfellas dangerously alive. It wasn't a movie, Scorsese says. It was a high-wire act. Actors' lives suffered. Liotta's insomnia, Bracco's strained marriage, Pesci avoiding fans. The crew sacrificed too. I missed my daughter's birthday, Allen says, regretful. Ethical questions lingered. Were they enabling Hill's legacy? We told the truth, Scorsese says, but it cost us. Socio-political parallels emerged. 1980s greed mirrored the mob's excess. It was Reagan's America, Bracco says. The improv's intensity reflected the era's reckless ambition, amplifying the film's edge. Real mobsters haunted the Goodfellas set. No names, just cold stares, Assistant Director Joseph Reedy says, voice tense. They suggested cigarette holds, cash stacks, hat tilts with eerie precision. They knew the shooting schedule exactly. Showed up for murders, deals. Scorsese says, cautious, Liotta met one. Henry's left hand twitched when stressed. He recalls, chilled. He knew Henry did business. A Copacabana worker showed Liotta Henry's moves, nodding to staff, slipping tips. Like stepping into 1970, he says. Lorraine Bracco met a woman in Little Italy. Karen had fire. She was one of us, she said, naming jewelry, Cartier necklaces, Tiffany rings, Bulgari earrings. Costumes faced intense scrutiny. Jimmy wouldn't wear that gray, designer Richard Bruno says. Another corrected a watch, Rolex. Oyster Perpetual, not Omega Seamaster. De Niro's never rat speech was tweaked. Be subtler, more coded, a contact urged. Pesci got calls from old neighborhood contacts. Show it right, they said, voices heavy. FBI advisors helped, but mobsters gave real details. Prison cooking? Colavita olive oil, not Bertolli. Pileggi says, precise. A heist's whiskey. Jim Beam, not Jack. A murder's cleanup. Bleach smell. Jersey dump site. Off Route 3. Not in any record, Scorsese says, uneasy. Lufthansa heist lock. Chubb, not Yale. Cigarettes. Marlboro, not Camel. Tie knot. Windsor. A 1976 scam used an IBM Selectric printer for fake IDs. A 1974 extortion named $10,000 cash drops at a Brooklyn pier. A 1968 robberies slang, clip, not score. Like confessions, Reedy says. A 1972 loan sharking detail listed 2% weekly interest. A 1975 hit used a Beretta 92 with a silencer. A 1970 drug deal specified 80% pure cocaine. Too specific, Bruno says, uneasy. We weren't glorifying, Scorsese insists. Firm. We needed their truth. The premiere had real figure. In the audience, unrecognized. A note said, you got it right, Pileggi says, unsure. Praise or warning? I don't know, he adds. Liotta felt watched. Their eyes were always on us, he says, voice dropping. The mob's presence was a chilling shadow, constant and inescapable. Ethical dilemmas plagued the crew. Were we giving them a stage? Reedy wonders, conflicted. A 1990 mob threat, unsigned letter to Winkler, heightened fears. We crossed a line, Bruno says, heavy. The socio-political climate, Reagan-era deregulation, echoed the mob's lawlessness. It was their world, Pileggi says. The mob's input made the film authentic, but the crew feared complicity daily. The Copacabana shot, a 3-minute Steadicam, showed Henry's power and swagger. 15 takes, all failures, cinematographer Michael Ballhaus says, exhausted. 50 extras, waiters, cooks, band, moved on cue. One misstep ruined it, he says, voice strained. A Copa worker shared Henry's $50 tips, folded in thirds. It made the shot authentic, Ballhaus says. Henry's final day used 200 angles, mirrors, dashboards, pill bottles. Cuts got faster, editor Thelma Schoonmaker says. It mirrored his mind-breaking, she adds. Audio flash-forwards bled dialogue forward. His panic in sound, sound designer Skip Laevsay says. Ambient sounds, horns, helicopter blades, Henry's ragged breathing, amplified dread. The soundtrack was a narrator, not background. Gimme Shelter cost $150,000, Scorsese says, wincing. Pistol whipping synced to Atlantis, frame speeds adjusted to hit beats. We matched the music's crescendo, Schoonmaker says. Aging makeup used FBI surveillance photos. We saw sunken eyes, stress line, designer Alan Weisinger says. Sets shifted, 50s chrome polish, 70s gaudy excess, 80s sterile fluorescent. Time aged them, designer Christy Zaya says. It's their constrained life, Ballhaus says. Freeze frames caught adrenaline's mental snapshots. Your brain holds shock, Scorsese says. Camera lenses, 35mm for intimacy, 50mm for tension, shaped the feel. The sound team layered 300 audio tracks. Street noise, club chatter, footsteps, sirens. We built Henry's world, Liotta says. Lighting shifted. Warm 50s glow, cold 80s fluorescence. It marked time's toll, Zaya says. The tech broke barriers, creating a new cinematic language. It nearly killed us, Ballhaus says, half laughing. It changed film forever. The crew's exhaustion, 18-hour days, Ballhaus's back pain, birthed a masterpiece. Innovations like tracking shots and sound design set standards. Every TV drama copies us, Schoonmakers says. Ethical questions lingered. Did the tech glorify violence? We told the truth, Ballhaus says, firm. The global impact was vast. European filmmakers like Luc Besson adopted the style. It reshaped storytelling, Zaya says. The crew's sacrifices, family time, health, fueled a cinematic revolution. Liotta's Henry Hill was raw, unapologetic. I didn't judge him, he says, voice steady. He shadowed ex-cons in Brooklyn, copying laughs, cigarette flicks, slang like clip. It was anthropology, he says, drained. Joe Pesci's Tommy DeVito was a live wire. No warnings. I kept them guessing, he says, intense. He practiced mood swings in mirrors, flipping to rage in 3 seconds. Like training for a fight, he says. The shine box scene stunned Frank Vincent. Real escalation, no acting, Scorsese says, awed. Robert De Niro's Jimmy Conway was quiet menace. Powers in the eyes, he says, voice low. He studied FBI tapes, mimicking Burke's coffee sips, smirks, bill stacks. Lorraine Bracco's Karen was no victim. She loved the life. It's thrill, she says, fierce. She met mob wives in Bensonhurst. They were players, proud, defiant, Bracco says. Paul Sorvino's Paulie Cicero ruled silently. Dead eyes, that's control, he says. He watched 1960s mafia newsreels for their stillness, their power. No one chased awards, Scorsese says, proud. They vetoed false lines, studied gestures obsessively. They became these people, he says, awed. They redefined acting, complex, unlikable, riveting. Liotta lived Henry's chaos. It drained me, he says, heavy. Pesci struggled with Tommy's violence. It clung to me, he says, weary. Bracco felt guilt. Karen's thrill haunted me, she says. The personal cost was high. I couldn't sleep. Henry's paranoia became mine, Liotta says. Bracco's marriage strained. I was too deep in Karen, she admits. Pesci avoided public places, fearing fan aggression. Ethical dilemmas hit hard. Did I glorify Henry? Liotta wonders, conflicted. The actors' lives changed. Liotta lost friends. Pesci faced fan confrontations. Bracco questioned her morality. It was worth it, Scorsese says. The global impact was profound. Actors like Javier Bardem cited Pesci's intensity. It changed how we perform, Bracco says. The performance's rawness set a new standard for authenticity. Goodfellas earned $46.8 million on a $25 million budget, proving risky stories win. Filmmakers called, asking how. Producer Barbara Defina says, smiling. Voiceovers became character tools. Non-linear timelines went mainstream. Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Succession, Our DNA, Scorsese says. Liotta was typecast. Only gangster roles came, he says, frustrated. Pesci felt Tommy's shadow. They expected explosions, he says, weary. Tracking shots, pop song. Storytelling became industry standards. Music tells the story now, music supervisor Randall Poster says. Anti-heroes like Tony Soprano, Kendall Roy, Walter White, O. Henry. We showed flawed charisma, Scorsese says, reflective. Henry, Hill blew his cover, bragging in bars. He couldn't separate from Ray, Pileggi says. Hill's addiction led to arrests. 1996, cocaine charge. 2007, death. The film was his life, Pileggi says. The film shifted mob portrayal. Before, it was glamour or cartoonish. Scholar Peter Biskin says, we showed seduction and ruin. Filmmakers like Guy Ritchie, Martin McDonagh, David O. Russell followed its blueprint. The mob reacted post-release. Some sent threats, anonymous calls, Winkler says, caution. The Lufthansa heist scene's accuracy sparked a 1991 FBI probe. Too precise, Pileggi says, uneasy. The socio-political context, Reagan-era excess, RICO Act's mob decline, shaped its reception. It reflected greed's cost, Biskin says. The film endures in film schools, TV, cultural debates, and global cinema. Ethical costs lingered. Did we glorify them? Scorsese wonders. Conflicted. The crew grappled with complicity. We told the truth, Winkler says, but it came at a price, a heavy one. The global influence reached Asia. John Woo's kinetic style echoed. Goodfellas, it's universal, Defina says. The film's legacy reshaped storytelling, but its moral weight never faded. Goodfellas is a miracle of risk and truth. From an ignored book to mobsters on set, raw improv to groundbreaking tech. It's a testament to daring. Actors lived their roles. Crew walked tightropes. Feel the fear, passion, and gamble in every frame. Drop your favorite moment below. Did this change your view? Like, subscribe, turn on notifications for more untold stories. Next, we dive into another cinema legend. Goodfellas bears the world's flaws. Watch it again. Feel its pulse.
Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more dives into Hollywood's hidden history.